Hello guys. Today, instead of talking about banks, I'll talk about Telesat Corporation. Telesat Corporation is a Canadian company which is involved in satellites and communication. And today I'd like to explain to you the reason why I sold the company. From Finance Yahoo, we can see that during this 5-year period, the company began at a share price of 17.52 and it is now at 24.99. Personally, I purchased the company in late 2024 when the company was at a share price of 16. I will explain to you the reason why I sold it, but first let us look at their annual report. From the company's consolidated statement of income, we can see that their revenue dropped from 759,000 to 571,000. Please remember that this is in thousands and it is in Canadian dollars. The revenue dropped by a large amount, and unfortunately their expenses have been the same during this time period. Apart from operating losses, it went from 7,000 to negative 264,000. This is quite concerning. I'd like to see a decrease in expenses and an increase in revenue. As we can see, the company suffered a large loss in income. In the previous year, the company's income was at a positive 583,000 and now it is at negative 302,000. Moving on, let us now talk about their cash flows. From the cash flows, we can see that their operating activities dropped from 239,551 to 62,464. The main reason is because of the large drop in income. In terms of their investing activities, the company's investing went from 11,695 to negative 1,091,000. The reason for this is due to the cash payments related to satellite programs. The company invested in satellite programs from initially it was at 31,805,000 and now it's at negative 1,045,000. It's good that the company is investing in the future. However, the question remains if these investments are actually profitable for the company. The company has lost a lot of revenue and income, and I'm concerned that they may have purchased older equipment, and if it's not older, we have to ask ourselves if they'll be able to maintain the equipment and programs that they purchased. If their income and revenue continues to drop, I think they may not be able to profit from their investment. In terms of financing activities, their financial activities went from negative 127,000 to negative 170,000. This is not significant change. The main reason why it slightly changed is because of the repurchase of indebtedness. In any case, let us now talk about their balance sheet. So, when it comes to Telesat's balance sheet, I don't like the fact that the company's cash and equivalents have dropped significantly during this time period from 1,669,000 to 552,000. These are difficult times for companies, and especially for Canadian companies, and I'd like to see more cash in the company. Also, as you can see, their satellites and equipment have increased from 1,260,000 to 2,277,000. Again, we must ask ourselves, considering the fact that they lost so much revenue and income and cash, are they able to maintain this new equipment that they bought? And is this equipment new? In any case, that is all I have to say about their balance sheet. Let us now put these values into Guru Finance and see what we get. Now, using Finance Guru, let us compare their current annual report with their previous annual report. And as we can see, the company's annual report dropped significantly. In the previous year, their finance, their growth, even their value was above 80, and now their finance condition is below 40, their growth is below 10, and their value is barely above 40. I don't think the company can recover from this, and there are several reasons why their annual report suffered so much and why I don't think they can recover. The first reason I'd like to talk about is Trump. Telesat is a Canadian company, and they are dependent on the United States of America. Canada exports 75% of everything they produce to America. And they haven't been negotiating with Trump very well. They tried to impose the digital tax recently, an idea that came from the Europeans, and very quickly they had to remove it. They haven't negotiated with Trump in good faith, and because of that, I think they will suffer after the deadline. And you have to think, as a shareholder, will Telesat survive a year or 6 months of tariffs? They have reduced revenue, they have negative income, and even their cash has dropped significantly. If Trump were to impose a 30 or 50% tariff on Canada, would Telesat survive in that market? Will it manage? The next thing I'd like to talk about is their competition. Telesat has few competitors. However, one of their competitors is SpaceX. SpaceX launches rockets into space multiple times a week, a month. One of their rockets crashes, they launch 2-3 more in the same month. Telesat doesn't have any room to compete with SpaceX. They don't do any of their own launches. They've never have. They only have 14 satellites in space right now. On the other hand, SpaceX has 7,500, and they plan to launch 42,000 more. It's just the difference between the two companies is staggering. And I don't think that SpaceX will allow any competitors to grow. This includes the European satellite company Eutelsat. Eutelsat also had a very bad annual report in 2024. They didn't have a very good annual report in 2024. So neither the European or the Canadian company Telesat can compete with SpaceX. Telesat does have a deal with SpaceX that SpaceX will launch 14 rockets next year for Telesat. Now, will this deal go through is another matter. It doesn't change the fact that would only increase Telesat's satellites to 28. On the other hand, SpaceX has over 7,000 right now, and who knows how many they will have in 2026. I don't think that Telesat can compete with SpaceX, with their main competitor, especially with its current balance statement, its current annual report. They don't stand a chance right now. And again, as a shareholder, you have to ask yourself, will Telesat manage if Trump imposes tariffs on Canada? Because right now I don't think they will be able to recover. Canadian economy is just dependent on the American one. And I think that the Canadian government has failed in reaching a deal with Trump. The other thing I'd like to mention is Telesat's annual report is so bad. It was released several months ago, and yet the share price rose to almost $25. It doesn't make sense when one looks at this. I mean, their income dropped by so much. It's hard to believe that shareholders would continue to buy it. For that reason, I suspect that the Canadian government is funding Telesat, trying to maintain it afloat. Maybe they directly invested in it, or they got hedge funds, pension funds of retired individuals in Canada to invest in Telesat in order to save the company. The other thing I don't like is the purchase of long-term assets, their investment in property and equipment and in satellites. They've lost so much income and cash during this year. I just don't think it's wise for them to purchase more long-term assets. And again, I don't think having a large amount of goodwill is a good indication of the company. In any case, let us put Telesat on the rating table. Now, from their annual report and from Finance Guru, I would place Telesat in the trash section. It doesn't seem that the Canadian government will reach a deal with Trump. If Trump imposes high tariffs on Canada, the Canadian economy will suffer, and more importantly, I think Telesat will suffer a significant loss. The company's cash has dropped quite a lot, so I'm worried that they might struggle to keep afloat if tariffs come. I don't think Telesat can manage against SpaceX. I don't think they can compete against Elon Musk's company. And I think that the Canadian government is subsidizing or getting hedge funds to invest money into Telesat in order to increase the company's share price. As for the European company, I also put it in the trash section. Their annual report is equally as bad. Will Europeans get tariffed or not? I don't know. Right now, I think they will. But it doesn't matter, because tariffs or no tariffs, I do not see Telesat or the European company from managing against SpaceX, being able to compete with them. SpaceX is just on a different level. It's just so much more advanced, so much more influence in the market. It's very, very difficult to compete against SpaceX. But in any case, these are all the reasons why I decided to sell Telesat. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like and subscribe. And in the next video, I'll talk about banks. See you next time.